Over the past 10 or so years, we've been seeing a real plateau in terms of gaming graphics. If you've been around, I'm sure you've noticed it firsthand. With the introduction of the 8th generation of consoles with the Xbox One and PS4, it feels like gaming graphics have only become marginally better. As the Xbox Series X and PS5s hit the market, I can't say I was really impressed with the visuals they were supplying. Sure, the games look good, but I want to say that this is mainly due to the increase in resolution that these newer consoles provided. The games didn't necessarily look more realistic, but instead more visibly clear and readable. Despite this plateau, developers have been hard at work to try and find new ways to deliver experiences that can redefine what gaming graphics can accomplish, whether it be visual fidelity, resolution, or visual density of stuff happening on screen at once. Developers are always looking to outdo themselves to create visuals people have never seen before. But for the majority of people that play games, it's not possible for them to always get the best visual experience that these devs are trying to deliver. Higher resolution, fidelity, and frame rates require higher price tags because the graphics cards and CPUs that are capable of delivering these experiences are not cheap. What's worse is that experiences are rarely optimized on release. Games releasing with terrible optimization is nothing new. It's been a thing ever since gaming was born. But nowadays, I think people are getting really fed up with it. We are expected to spend hundreds, if not thousands of dollars to play these games in the best possible settings we can, only for them to release in disgusting states of performance that can only really be maintained through the liberal use of frame generation, nauseating motion blur, and dynamic resolution. The textures and lighting may look good when stationary, but when things get moving and every single frame is pushed through this post-processing blender, it can all end up looking like someone smeared massive globs of Vaseline all over the screen, resulting in an experience that both plays and looks terrible. Another massive trend introduced with this slew of post-processing effects is RTX, NVIDIA's version of ray tracing. If you're not familiar, let me make it as dead simple as I can. Ray tracing is a graphics lighting process that makes lighting work more like it does in the real world. Lighting works in real time, actively changing the effects on the environment and making it shine on objects more realistically depending on their assigned material. So glass and water will make reflections. Light bulbs and fire will fill a room with light as it bounces from surface to surface. There are a lot of nuances to it that I won't get into, but I encourage you to do some research on the topic if you find it interesting. All of this to say that RTX takes a massive toll on a game's performance, all for realistic light simulations. It can benefit certain games that utilize a lot of darkness, like Cyberpunk 2077, but very rarely does it have any practical effect. To me, it's a feature that feels very tacky and unnecessary when it's combined with games with a distinct art direction that do not directly complement it. It's a feature that's being tacked onto games with very little foresight or planning, ending in a final product that can just look unnatural. Which brings us to the topic of today's video, Half-Life 2 RTX, a top-to-bottom remaster/reimagining mod project of Half-Life 2 with modern tools to create a version of Half-Life 2 with bloated install sizes and, of course, RTX, which, to me, encapsulates everything wrong with the trend of sacrificing performance and the gameplay, all in an effort to make a game more visually appealing by modern sensibilities and hardware. But before I continue, if you like long-form analysis videos like this, consider giving the channel a like and subscribe down below, as well as becoming a channel member to help me continue doing what I love. Your support means a lot and I really appreciate it. So let me preface all of this by saying that I'm not a graphics master. I'm not Digital Foundry or Gamers Nexus, and I will never claim to be. You don't come to my channel for reviews of graphics cards or performance data for the latest cards hitting the market. Trust me, you wouldn't want me handling that because it is far from my wheelhouse. In reality, what I am is a consumer, a very passionate consumer. I built several computers over my life, starting pretty modestly with low-end specs and stepping up every 5 years or so to make something truly powerful. Only recently have I really stepped into my adulting shoes with a full-time job and have the ability to spend upwards of $2,000 on one of the best top-of-the-line computers. I picked out all the parts and built the thing myself. Also, I could play games in the best possible quality, and so I could future-proof for the next 10 years or so of gaming. When I first saw the announcement of Half-Life 2 RTX, I was excited. I spent $2,000 on a brand new PC, and now I'll finally be able to revisit an amazing game with a crazy new set of paint. It sounded like a great way to spend an afternoon. There's nothing inherently wrong with the existence of Half-Life 2 RTX. It's a completely free mod for people that own Half-Life 2 already. And let's be honest, if you don't have a copy of Half-Life 2 yet, you're doing yourself a disservice. It's a mod being headed up by some genuinely talented developers and modders who have been working on the Half-Life franchise for a long time, porting it to VR and creating a frankly insane custom campaign with unique weapons, enemies, environments to explore in the form of Raising the Bar Redux. These people know their stuff and they know Half-Life 2. There's a reason why these people have been working on Half-Life 2 for so long, and it's easy to see why that is. Half-Life 2 is, without a doubt, still deeply influential to the world of gaming today. When the game launched in 2004, it was deemed not only a masterclass in game design, but in state-of-the-art technology as well, with its showcase of the Source engine. Recently, Valve released their E3 2003 demo for the world to revisit in 4K, and it's amazing how many things it showcases that still impress me to this day. The way objects shatter and interact with the world around it, the way heavy objects placed in water sink to the bottom of a pool, and even the way faces animate with detail as to match every lip flap and eye movement. I know to many that this may seem antiquated by today's standards, but that's because the release of Half-Life 2 set today's standards. Valve's work on the game set the baseline for what not only first-person shooters could accomplish, but what games in general could accomplish with gameplay and technology working hand in hand. It wasn't technology for the sake of it. It was all invented in service of the experience, and that's what makes it still stand out today. Nothing in the world plays like Half-Life 2, for better and for worse. It's been 20 years since Half-Life 2 was released, and after playing through the demo several times to collect footage for this video, it's hard not to notice some of that classic Source engine jank that can stop you dead in your tracks. Trying and failing to make leaps across basic gaps, being unable to walk up even the most minor of ledges, getting magnetized to ladders in order to climb them, and having to crouch jump to progress to certain areas. The incredible advancements in technology can't stop that old FPS jank from constantly working against it. Despite everything, however, Half-Life 2 still comes out on top when it comes to discussing influential games because of its technology. So now you might be asking, what is the point of adding RTX to a game more than 20 years old? Well, that's a great question. A question I continue to ask myself even after playing through the demo several times. If you ask me, the RTX mod seems to be antithetical to the game in general. Half-Life 2 is an incredibly intentional game, a curated experience from beginning to end with set pieces that never disappoint. Every chapter in the game emphasizes a part of Half-Life 2's design to showcase a specific part of its philosophy, to give the player new and exciting experiences, to not hold their hand and let them solve puzzles on their own, whether it be environmental or combat oriented. Every object placed in the world, every enemy, every jump scare and environment is all designed with the player and their experience in mind. That's what makes it so fun to play and so memorable as a gameplay experience. I know that if you've played Half-Life 2 before, you have a favorite moment, a moment that will always stick out to you as a player. The technology works together with the game to create those amazing experiences you remember. I hate to beat a dead horse by saying all of this, of course, but it's to emphasize the point that the inclusion of RTX really doesn't add anything to the experience. The game was designed with the systems it had in place. The lighting, the enemies, the level design, it was all considered. That's how we got the end product we have today. But ray tracing was not one of those systems. I think if ray tracing was an intentional factor in Half-Life 2's development, the majority of the game would be taking place in low light environments to showcase the realistic lighting taking place, which is exactly why the demo takes place in two of the darkest areas in the base game, Ravenholm and Nova Prospect. But RTX was never a factor in 2004, so to say that its inclusion feels half-baked would be a bit of an understatement. While it may look cool from an initial glance, its appeal does little else to benefit the overall experience. In fact, I think it actively serves as a detriment to the game. As I played the demo, the gameplay experience I had was pretty middling. With a 4080 and playing in 4K, I could barely get the frames to stay consistently around the 30s, and that's with frame generation. Put this together with the recommended motion blur, and it ended up in an experience that made me more than a little sick to my stomach, with blotches and smears that didn't work well. It made my gameplay experience worse, all in an effort to do what exactly? Make the fire effects more garishly orange? Yeah, it looks cool the first time you see it, but the 20th time, no, not so much. And then we could talk about the texture overhaul aspect of the mod, which I think will be more than a little contentious to players that love Half-Life 2's art direction. The art direction in Half-Life 2 is iconic, to say the least. Set in a dingy, war-torn Prague and the surrounding areas of Czechia, the game aims to deliver a look that is both impressionistic and realistic, making the world feel real and dirty, but still colorful. It was a world brought to life by the incredibly skillful hand of the late Viktor Antonov, who brought City 17 and its brutalist architecture to life. The art design was just as intentional as the gameplay of Half-Life 2, which is another reason why it's so iconic. Which brings me back to the texture overhaul that is the other half of the mod, which makes me feel, well, it makes me feel icky, for lack of any better words. Half-Life 2's original texture work was dedicated to both Victor's unique view of the world as well as his time in Prague, the influence it had over him, and he brought that vision to Half-Life. Seeing another team work over it and say that this is how the game should be experienced in modern times just feels wrong, because it is the active erasure of the original artists underneath that made the game look that way. There is an option in the mod to disable the new texture work, which is nice, but I have a feeling that the new textures are a necessary evil made to emphasize the RTX ray tracing. You can't have that new lighting work with the old models or else it might look funky. So I can see why they did it, but it doesn't make me feel any better. That's not to say the texture work in the RTX mod is bad. To me, it can look downright impressive at times. Zooming into some of these models, seeing every tooth modeled in their mouth and their blood-soaked faces made me audibly say wow because of the density of the textures on display. Looking at the fully realized mummified heads of the fast zombies underneath the head crabs is enough to send a shiver down anyone's spine. But at the end of the day, there is still something missing from the original vision behind the look of Half-Life 2 that just isn't here with these new textures. Ravenholm doesn't look nearly as dirty or as grungy as it should for an abandoned settlement overrun with zombies. Even Nova Prospect doesn't look like a rundown prison, just one filled with a lot of rubble and furniture strewn about. It all looks too professional, too clean, too sanitized, and that's unsettling. At this point, I still don't see the reason why RTX was added to Half-Life 2. If you do, I would like to hear what you think. But now, I'm just trying to find a reason, any justification at all, to mix the two to make whatever this end product is. The introduction of RTX to Half-Life 2 doesn't add anything to the experience, which makes me think that the entire project is just a massive waste of time. We've come to the point where technology doesn't complement the game design anymore, almost like Half-Life 2 was one of the few to truly understand it. Very few developers seem to really understand the nuanced relationship technology and design have in games, because you literally can't have one without the other. It's something that Valve understood deeply, and it's the reason why there is still no Half-Life 3 to this day. The tech isn't there, so Half-Life 3 doesn't exist. Simple as that. To me, it feels like developers aren't asking themselves the same questions Valve did all those years ago. Developers aren't asking themselves, what can we do with this unique technology to make a medium-defining experience? Now it's only about how many pixels we can fit on the screen and how blurry we can make it until it's truly unreadable. Or maybe it's because there just isn't anything else unique we can do with physics or water or facial capture or level design anymore. Who's to say, really? I think it's really telling that out of all of the games in the world, the people working on the RTX overhaul project decided to do Half-Life 2. To me, it feels as though the developers chose Half-Life 2 because of its legacy as a game defined by its groundbreaking technology. Kind of like how Doom is known for being able to run on anything.
These games are getting really realistic.
It's as if they said, oh, RTX is pretty groundbreaking. You know what else is groundbreaking? Half-Life 2. And then the project was started without so much as a second thought, and everyone high-fived. But no shame to this mod team, by the way. The work they're doing and the amount of it they're doing to try and maintain the original look and feel of the game is staggering, and I hope they get the recognition they deserve after the mod is complete. I don't in any way want to discount their clear passion for Half-Life 2, but I can't help but feel like this passion is misplaced. Half-Life 2 has been updated over the years to be playable on just about anything, from toaster to phone to Steam Deck. If you want to play Half-Life 2, just play it. There's no need for an extensive mod that changes the textures and lighting. The game is already good enough as it is, and is preserved as best as it could be in its original form. The appeal for ray tracing in Half-Life 2 wore off incredibly fast for me. After about 5 minutes into the demo, I couldn't care about the graphics anymore. There wasn't really any new tech being showcased other than, well, lighting and new texture work. It's impressive work for sure, there's no doubt about it. But after that wears off, it's still the same janky Half-Life 2 underneath. I'm still playing a great game, but I'm not looking at the fancy effects. I'm looking at the game underneath, a timeless masterpiece that still holds up after 20 years. And fancy new graphics aren't able to change timeless design work, no matter how you scratch it. I guess there are two positives to the mod as a whole. The fact is that Half-Life 2 still exists in its original form. Valve has done an amazing job preserving the legacy of the game and its associated media, making it accessible not only from a play perspective, but an archivist one. The second is that the mod will be completely free at launch. Whoever owns Half-Life 2 will be able to play it with all the new fancy effects work and all that with the same old janky game still lying underneath. It's not a true remake like the recently released fan project Black Mesa, but a love letter to Half-Life 2 and its legacy of technological progress. Taking a step back and looking at the industry as a whole, I can't help but feel like this will encourage the rise of even more ray-traced, motion blur, frame-generated RTX slop to hit the market as a cheap and lazy way to upgrade older titles to justify a brand new price tag of $70. It's already not great that we're seeing brand new titles released with features like this, and they perform and play horribly. It's all giving Nintendo hire this man vibes. I do not like this new trend because instead of focusing on art direction, companies will instead focus on features the majority of gamers won't be able to run well in order to justify the insane price of new titles or even bad remakes. I've been playing a lot of Monster Hunter Wilds in preparation for my next big video, and it shares a lot of similarities with Half-Life 2 RTX. Both are heavily reliant on expensive graphics cards in order to perform well at higher resolutions. Both require a heavy amount of frame generation to play at a reasonable frame rate, and both are pushing the boundaries of graphics technology. But at the same time, both do a very poor job of justifying their inclusions in the game they were made for. Neither game performs consistently well and will really only be able to be played by those with brutally expensive PCs. And for what? So we can get blurry Vaseline smeared frames that show the facsimile of a game rather than an actual playable one? It's all one big worrying trend that I can only see getting worse and worse as graphics cards get more expensive and games start to rely more on post-processing effects and AI than we do actual graphics. There's no wonder people are jumping back to older games at record numbers. Not only are they cheaper, but they are easier to run on lower end hardware, have smaller install sizes, and still work just fine on modern hardware, in most cases anyway. And that's just the thing, right? I think gamers are just sick of the bloat that is associated with modern gaming. It doesn't feel like I'm playing a game anymore, but instead playing with mountains of visual settings to get the most optimal experience for the money I've spent. I'm gonna be harsh and say that I don't think we need Half-Life 2 RTX because the ask is not worth the effort. A 40GB download for a 40-minute demo with 2 areas is just absurd. This is excess in its deepest form, and it all feels so wrong to me. I can't speak for everyone, but I don't come to games to look at pretty pictures all the time. In fact, I find myself falling back to quote-unquote older, worse-looking games more and more often because they offer much better gameplay than newer games released today. And Half-Life 2 is one of those games. It's amazing how a game released in 2004 still feels incredibly fresh to play all these years later because of how it bucks the trends of the time and does its own thing. Yes, it may feel somewhat old, but even that has its own charm. Half-Life 2 is going to play the same with or without ray tracing, so why would I actively choose to play a version of it that makes it perform worse in almost every metric? It just doesn't make much sense to me. I think publishers are trying way too hard to push visual innovations further and further at the cost of leaving the game part behind. You know, the thing that is arguably the most important part. My favorite game of last year was Balatro, for God's sake, and one of my favorite games of all time is The Binding of Isaac. Both incredibly simple looking games, but what they lack in fidelity they make up for in having some of the most addictive gameplay I've ever experienced. Looks can be deceiving. As time moves forward and games try to look better and better, we will continue to lose the parts that made them special. Innovative use of technology that can help facilitate more unique gameplay. It's a trade-off that more studios should be willing to make. This whole RTX trend is one that I hope to see disappear within the next 10 years or so, but it's a problem I imagine nvidia is helping to perpetuate as the industry moves forward and their grasp over AI and proprietary systems lead more developers away from alternatives like AMD. At the rate this is going, soon everything will be a proprietary renderer or post-processor from nvidia, and will all be forced to get their cards that continue to offer diminishing returns for even more expensive prices. All so we can get pretty lights and explosions. But hey, look at this one again. So pretty. Anyway, that's just what I think about Half-Life 2 and the RTX demo. Let me know what you think about the demo down below. Did you play it? Are you going to replay Half-Life 2 with the mod? I'd love to hear what you have to think about it. Special thanks goes out to my channel members listed here, and super special thanks goes out to my $3 channel member Cilantro. These amazing people help to financially support the channel and keep me creating content for people like you to enjoy. And if you want to join them on screen, you can become a member for as little as $1 by clicking the join button down below. Life has been pretty turbulent in the Testing Triangles household over the past month, with storms and some really rough family stuff happening all within a week. But I'm trying to keep a smile on my face while getting videos out for people to watch and enjoy while I have time. Don't worry, the Monster Hunter video is still coming, but I don't think it will be a mammoth 40-minute to 1 hour video like I usually do for my big projects. So it will come out when it comes out at this rate, but keep an eye on the sub feed for when it does. And as always, this has been Testing Triangles. Play Nubby's Number Factory because it's really good.